How do you feel about signals received from space? Are you skeptical or hopeful, or maybe the prospect of ending up in a situation like the one described in the 1996 movie Independence Day scares you? And you really don't want to look up at the sky one day and see an armada of hostile alien ships? Subscribe. Despite everything, astronomers continue to search for exoplanets, and their equipment occasionally picks up signals of unknown origin. Just recently, on June 10th, 2024, Australian scientists Emil Lenk and Manisha Caleb detected something amazing, a signal whose origin and structure are almost impossible to explain. What is it? Another fake? Absolutely not. The results of the event were immediately published in the respected journal Nature Astronomy. The report states that the Australian telescope caught an extraterrestrial signal that lasted a long 54 minutes. It was immediately named after the telescope that recorded the event, American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers. J. 1935 plus 2148. The unusual clarity of the signal was immediately noticeable. There are many objects in the universe that emit exotic pulses, but they are usually characterized by a very high frequency. For example, those coming from rapidly rotating neutron stars. But here, the situation is completely the opposite. The signal is an interesting mix. First, there's a short pulse, then an eerie silence, and the third part is long pulses lasting up to 50 seconds with linear polarization. It's the ending of this signal from an unknown source that confuses scientists. The thing is, the third part of this strange message doesn't match any signal we've ever received before. If it could be heard, it would sound something like this. Who or what could be making it? The main characteristic of the last third of the recorded signal is its unnaturalness. What does scientists mean? Let's use a clear example to explain. The Earth, like any object in space, emits certain waves. Since our planet is inhabited by intelligent beings who have created countless devices over the centuries, Earth's messages into space are fundamentally different from, for example, those from the moon. Such signals can be called the fingerprint of planet Earth, which, against the background of radiation from a lifeless celestial body, would look unnatural. The Earth's aura is a kind of jumble of billions of different impulses, ranging from your favorite television show to the echoes of high-precision equipment at work. How did we find out that it is the Earth that emits outward? The probe Odysseus told us about this. What is this mission about? This is the first private spacecraft in history to land on our satellite. But although the landing was soft, it did not make the mission successful. Sometime after landing, Odysseus tipped over onto its side and continued to observe the surroundings from this awkward position, since its instruments never shut down. It's unknown what benefit the probe will bring in the future, but as it approached the moon, it already helped Earth astronomers. The thing is, as the spacecraft descended, it turned its antenna toward Earth, and in this way, scientists heard the cacophony of sounds we send into space. Why do you need this information? Think about it. Could the atypical American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers, J 1935 plus 2148 signal, be the same kind of cacophony as in the case of the Earth's fingerprint? So, does that mean we finally picked up signals from a celestial body inhabited by intelligent beings? Manisha Caleb, one of the authors of the study, is sure that such a signal could hardly have been received from a single object. Among other likely sources, magnetars or white dwarfs are also suggested. The area from which the signal was received is quite populated. There are many neutron stars, black holes, and other galactic monsters there. So each of them could be a likely source of the American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers, J 1935 plus 2148 signal. However, let's look at this situation from another perspective. In statistics, there is a term called the survivorship bias. In short, it is a cognitive distortion that gives the researcher a false picture of a phenomenon or experiment. Applied to signals from space, this means that there may actually be many more of these galactic greetings, but we only caught one because we weren't specifically looking for signals with these characteristics. How do you like that, Elon Musk? Speaking of him, no doubt he will definitely share his opinion about the recently received signal, but earlier at one of the conferences, the billionaire clearly stated his position regarding the existence of extraterrestrial life in general. He chose the language of facts and informed the public that not one of the 6,000 Starlink satellites during their entire existence has ever had to change its trajectory or mode of operation due to any external event or encounter with something extraterrestrial. From this, Elon Musk concluded that, at least in Earth's orbit, there are absolutely no aliens. But that's near Earth, and the universe isn't limited to the vicinity of our planet and the American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers. J, 1935 plus 2148 signal came from far away. Is it possible to draw a conclusion about the existence of aliens based on the data obtained? And, to use the words of the famous physicist Enrico Fermi, where is everybody? There are more than 50 explanations for the Fermi paradox, but many of them have become outdated over time. Now, scientists lean toward two main explanations. The first one goes like this: aliens exist, but they are too far away from us, so to speak, out of range of our equipment. The second explanation is more uncomfortable to accept. It goes like this: Earth is a global zoo, meaning that we are simply being observed from the outside. The theory of a cosmic scale zoo was first proposed by the astronomer John Ball. He claimed that the universe is inhabited by intelligent beings who are more intellectually advanced than we are. That is why they are in no hurry to make direct contact with us, preferring instead to observe humans as if we were animals in a zoo. Stephen King's novel Under the Dome also discusses this kind of observation. And although the work focuses more on the nuances of human interaction within a confined space, at the end of the novel, Stephen King describes contact between representatives of humanity and the aliens who are observing them through the dome. What do you think about all this? Perhaps we are under constant observation by beings who are immeasurably more intelligent and advanced than we are. Then who sent the American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers, J, 1935 plus 2148 signal? Earthlings have also sent messages into space multiple times. Remember the Arecibo message? This strange message was sent from the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico in November 1974. It contained information that was completely incomprehensible from the point of view of an ordinary person depicted schematically. Therefore, we can't rule out the possibility that aliens, upon receiving such a message, didn't understand anything from it. Would you like the signal American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers J, 1935 plus 2148, to really come from a densely populated planet? Or maybe you secretly expect aliens to arrive on Earth soon. Supporters of the theory are sure that soon an armada of spaceships will appear in Earth's sky, which in reality will be a giant hologram. Inside it, there will be fighter jets actually destroying peaceful cities. You might ask, why is this simulation created with the help of satellites necessary? Followers of the blue beam theory believe that this way, controlling humanity will become much easier. And with the help of a simulated alien invasion, the world government will try to establish a new social order. If you remove the fighter jets from this scenario and imagine real alien ships instead, the picture doesn't get any better. But let's get back to the extraterrestrial signal received by the Australians. What could it be? In addition to likely cosmic candidates, there could also be earthly causes involved in the origin of the pulses. There have been cases where ultra-sensitive equipment mistook noise and vibrations from a passing truck or pulses from a microwave oven for extraterrestrial signals. However, as we mentioned at the beginning of the video, there can be no doubt about the authenticity of the signal received by by the Australian Observatory. The only problems arise with its interpretation. What are the chances of intelligent life existing in space at all? Should we expect meaningful signals from aliens? From a mathematical point of view, as a result of recent research, the picture looks more optimistic than scientists previously thought. It is believed that if you reset Earth to its factory settings, primitive life would still eventually appear on it. As for intelligent life here, the probability drops significantly, reaching 45%. Mathematicians got about the same result regarding the emergence of life in the universe, especially in its intelligent forms. Therefore, it's not so foolish to expect purposeful signals from space. But are we even capable of understanding who is trying to tell us something and what they want to say? What awaits humanity in terms of monitoring the universe for intelligent life in the future? This question can be answered by orbital telescopes. These devices in Earth's orbit can observe the universe's origins and may help detect signs of extraterrestrial life. Right now, James Webb is working tirelessly on these and other tasks, never resting its mirrors. But in the future, we are in for an incredible breakthrough in this field. The fact is that in 2014, the construction of an overwhelmingly large telescope began. And that's not just a figure of speech. The device is actually called the Overwhelmingly Large Telescope. Overwhelmingly Large Telescope. A larger telescope mirror is thought to be more effective. So, the Overwhelmingly Large Telescope has a mirror with a diameter of 100 meters, which means that practically all the mirrors of existing ground-based telescopes could fit on its disk. Considering the extreme complexity of building such a device, engineers had to divert their attention to less ambitious projects. Sooner or later, the huge telescope will still reach Earth's orbit. So there's no need to despair. If not us, then our children or grandchildren will definitely see the first detailed photographs of alien worlds, exoplanets of gas giants, and will also receive and decipher the coveted extraterrestrial messages. We're both lucky and unlucky at once. We're lucky not to live in an era when people thought the Earth was flat. On the other hand, we're still so far from the technologies we see in science fiction movies, Mars farms, antimatter engines, and more. Those are exactly the things that would allow us to travel vast distances through space. But what if humanity fails to create such advanced technologies in the future? What will happen to us? Will we really never make our fantasies a reality? The main fact we need to know is that we can't travel faster than light. This goes against Einstein's special theory of relativity, and it would be problematic for a hypothetical spaceship to travel at less than this speed, considering at least the fact that the crew would have time to grow old and die several times over. After all, the width of the Milky Way reaches 100,000 light years. To actually reach the edge of our galaxy, we would need a spaceship that could accommodate several generations living there at once. Another option is to add the ability to accelerate to 80% of the speed of light. Relativistic time dilation would play a significant role here, as it could actually slow down the passage of time on the ship. However, there are significant challenges with this option as well. To accelerate the ship to such a speed, you would need to use special engines based on matter or antimatter, or for example, the energy of black holes. We think you understand that doing something like this is unrealistic right now, and it's not certain that it will be possible in the future, which cuts off many options for us. Let's imagine how we would act if we urgently needed to leave Earth. For example, in the event of an unforeseen disaster, National Aeronautics and Space Administration might decide to move as many Earthlings as possible to the closest exoplanet to us, Proxima Centauri b. And right now, in theory, we are capable of building a spacecraft with a speed of only 10% of the speed of light. It's hard to even imagine the costs for such a vessel. That way, it would take us 42 years to reach the exoplanet. Many crew members simply wouldn't live to see it. And even if they did, they would already be of advanced age. Of course, we could rely on cryonics technology, but it's unlikely that this field will make significant progress in the coming years. And again, we come back to the need to place several generations on the ship. If we decide to build a generation ship, then the engine will play a crucial role here. It determines how many generations need to be on board, how much provisions and technology are needed to sustain life over such a long period of time. So what does humanity have right now? Not in theory, but in practice. At the moment, the most powerful engine is the Parker Solar Probe, which uses hydrazine, one type of rocket fuel, and electrical energy for acceleration. The engine's top speed is 700,000 kilometers per hour. According to our calculations, which also take into account the approximate size of the ship, it would take us only 6,300 years to reach Proxima Centauri b. 6,300 years is about 200 generations. As you can understand, we can't be sure that everything will go according to plan over such a huge period of time, and that we'll avoid various unforeseen circumstances. In that case, we should consider an engine option that accelerates nuclear fusion. In that case, the speed should be higher, although again, such technologies are very difficult to implement. That's why it would be quite difficult for us to create a relatively small engine for a spacecraft. However, we've gotten pretty good at mastering the technology of thermonuclear explosions. Thanks to this, the devices can gain speed without needing a prolonged reaction. The maximum speed of such an engine can be about 30% of the speed of light, but often it's still less, much less, around 10%. However, considering the urgency of building a spacecraft, it might be about 3% of the speed of light. In that case, the journey to Proxima b would take only about 140 years, and we would need 4 or 5 generations. We must consider both pessimistic and optimistic options, 6,300 years and 140 years. Actually, it's necessary for us to have a clear plan in case the worst-case scenario happens. A lot depends on what kind of engine we have, how many people are needed, how many resources, and we need to pay special attention to the number of passengers. After all, genetic diversity is very important here. If there aren't enough people, then over such a long period, especially over 6,300 years, most of the crew will have genetic abnormalities. Scientists suggest that to ensure stable population development, at least 500 people need to be taken on board the ship, and such a number of people need to be provided with at least basic amenities. For example, gravity. Without it, people will eventually develop health issues, particularly with their bones. Here we're lucky because we already know how to create artificial gravity. To do this, we can build a rotating ring structure that will be placed at the base of the ship. Scientists have calculated that in order to feed 500 people, an area of 0.45 square kilometers is needed, where everything necessary will be stored. If you compare this to the approximate size of the spacecraft, the area for provisions will clearly take up more space than the ship itself. In that case, we have two options. Either several more ships carrying food should follow the spacecraft, or we need to minimize the area of this sector as much as possible. We will clearly have to abandon the idea of raising livestock and instead focus on growing crops with a high nutritional content. Although, again, for that we would need a couple of dozen starships. And in fact, the problem with provisions is not as serious as the problem with water supply. For normal life, 500 people need about 1,000 liters of water per day. And that's not even counting the amount needed for growing various crops. So the daily minimum amount of water would increase several times. You'd need both water reservoirs and water recycling stations. And that's at least one more additional starship. As you can see, our spacecraft keeps getting bigger, and we should really focus on water recycling rather than transporting more supplies. That would let us greatly reduce the ship's size. There's only one advantage to having a large number of water tanks. It's protection from radiation, and that's never a bad thing, considering how long the spacecraft would be traveling. And there's one more component we couldn't do without on the journey: oxygen, or more precisely, a sufficient supply of it. We need a mechanism to efficiently convert carbon dioxide back into oxygen. Such technologies already exist on modern spacecraft. However, Most likely, a single recycling mechanism won't be enough for that many people. It will be necessary to provide an optimal amount of vegetation on board so that natural air recirculation also takes place. In this context, scientists can work on creating an autonomous biosphere system. We have pretty good prospects in this area. We believe we've considered everything needed to deliver the cruise successfully. However, in reality, that's far from everything. Just imagine what a person would feel who finds himself not just far from home, but far from his home planet. What kind of stress, what kind of emotional turmoil does he go through, being completely isolated from his usual life? In such a situation, productivity also decreases. Mental health is just as important as physical health. This should not be ignored. How can we lower the crew's stress levels? We could address the aspect of cultural development, organize movie screenings, and support creative activities in every possible way. However, that's not enough. The feeling of being cut off from the real world won't go away. Here, scientists could use artificial intelligence. The crew could be provided with special psychologist robots that are based on artificial intelligence technology. They would take responsibility for maintaining people's psychological well-being. It would also be possible to consider integrating virtual reality technologies through virtual reality glasses. People could find themselves in a familiar atmosphere, at home, in nature, on the seashore, and so on. It would also be possible to work on reproducing familiar scents. Right now, it all seems more like a dream, but who knows how things will be for the next generation. Maybe we're just underestimating our children. We've talked so many times about Mars, about what lies on its surface and inside, yet the red planet continues to surprise us. For example, this cluster of craters and lakes really looks a lot like an angel. It looks both beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The huge wings stretch for hundreds of kilometers, and the halo could fit a large city inside it. How did this strange pattern appear? Is it just a coincidence? And what other unusual and frightening things are there on the red planet? You probably remember the story about something that looked a lot like cutlery being found on Mars. And now the Curiosity rover has a theory about who might have been involved in this. The thing is, in one of the photos, they noticed a door in the rock, although it was only about 30 centimeters tall. But this makes us consider the theory about all sorts of dwarf creatures. However, the fantasies of ordinary people were shattered by harsh reality. Scientists have repeatedly said this door is simply a common crack, like many others on Martian rocks. All sorts of mystical things started being noticed on Mars a little earlier. 1976, that's when pictures were taken of an area in the northern hemisphere of Mars called Cydonia. That would be unremarkable, except many people saw a giant human face in the rocks. People believed that it was true, and this belief lasted for quite a while, until the late 80s when we got pictures of the same area, but from a different angle, and it didn't look like a human face at all. The 1976 photo showed us nothing more than a play of light. Here we have a second case of something anomalous on Mars, turning out to be nothing more than a product of people's imagination. Why do we have such an irresistible desire to explain quite ordinary phenomena with something extraordinary or unusual? Why do people see, say, the image of the Virgin Mary and rain marks on the wall of a house? Let me put it this way. Humans have a truly amazing ability to recognize familiar shapes and images quite quickly. In ancient times, it was impossible to get by without such a skill. It helped people notice danger in time. Nowadays, let's say, we use this unique ability on little things like seeing a face in a pile of stones. Our mind involuntarily presents us with familiar images, and we can no longer unsee them in ordinary things. But what if we still can't explain all the phenomena on Mars rationally? There has to be something, right? Oh, actually, even in our century, plenty of crazy theories have appeared. For example, did you know that there's an entire forest on Mars and it can actually become denser or thinner? At least that's what the author of Space Odyssey, Arthur Clarke, believed back in 2001. He reached this conclusion after reviewing the latest red planet images. The writer believed that this forest was a source of nourishment for the Martians. That's right. Later, scientists suggested that the forest was not a forest at all, but rather interesting formations made of dry ice, which in turn is composed of carbon dioxide. Sometimes these clusters become denser because the dry ice periodically melts and freezes again. And even 10 years later, the crazy theories didn't stop there. Then a blogger named David Martinez found an entire alpha biostation on Mars, in short, a settlement of unknown beings. Martinez believes that we're seeing the top of a huge underground structure that could serve as a bunker. But here, scientists put forward another theory. Supposedly, the bunker is just a play of light that was captured by the cameras. Some people think that having so many mundane explanations for such unusual things is at the very least strange. But what if the scientists were wrong in all these cases? After all, this has happened before in history. Since the 19th century, scientists and others have considered the theory that there was once water on Mars. Later, it turned out that the supposed rivers and lakes were just mountain ridges and traces from meteorite impacts. It seemed that the theory had finally become unviable. The scientific community even started calling it the biggest embarrassment. However, as you already know, there was an unexpected twist in all of this. So we got a picture of this crater and its tail. The crater was most likely caused by a meteorite impact, but the tail's much more interesting. Its structure showed water once flowed through it, proving water once existed on Mars, and that 19th century astronomers were correct. And this unexpected discovery soon helped to find other areas where there could have been water. Moreover, soon even more interesting details were revealed. The rover Opportunity discovered strange objects the size of small balls in 2004. This once again sparked a wave of heated discussions. It was later found that these objects are made of hematite, an iron mineral, and such a shape could only form through interaction with water. And that means only one thing: there was water in this area quite recently. This suggested that traces of specific bacteria could be found in the Martian soil. There have been all sorts of things in the history of Mars exploration. There was even a time when scientists found a strange object, clearly not of natural origin, which later turned out to be a lost fragment of a rover. And we're sure this isn't the end. Mars will present us with many more interesting puzzles. The only mystery for us is whether their explanations will be rational. We could talk for days on end about the endless expanses of space, and we would always have something interesting to share. That's why we now invite you to enjoy a selection of unusual facts not only about the solar system, but about the universe as a whole. What would happen if the moon got closer to the Earth? And what if black holes collided? And what were the last words of the Opportunity rover? Have you ever wondered if days on Earth have started to last longer? You might think it's just your imagination, but in fact, this is a scientifically proven fact. The reason lies in the moon, which is moving away from our planet by almost 4 centimeters every year. It may seem like a tiny amount, but over billions of years, it adds up to a considerable distance. 1.4 billion years ago, a day lasted only an hour. How much would you be able to do in that time? Scientists estimate that in a billion years, a day will last 28 hours. You've probably come across this photo more than once on the internet. Now it seems quite ordinary. After all, we know so much about what's beyond Earth. Now it's quite normal for us that we can go out into open space. However, in reality, the story behind this photo is not only interesting, but also somewhat frightening. It shows the American astronaut Bruce McCandless, Sabuai I, and he became the first person in history to work in open space without a safety tether. That is, he wasn't connected to the spacecraft by a special tether, and Bruce McCandless moved as far as 100 meters away from the shuttle. Just think about it. He was alone in open space. If something unexpected had happened, there was no guarantee that McCandless would have been helped in time. But the astronaut himself wasn't afraid of that. When answering journalists' questions about what really scared him, he only said that he was very cold. You might find this question strange, but still, Do you know what the last words of the Opportunity rover were? First, it's worth saying that this rover exceeded all expectations. Initially, scientists assumed that Opportunity would stay on Mars for only 90 days, but the rover carried out its mission there for a long 14 years. In 2018, a powerful dust storm arose on Mars, which negatively affected the rover's operation. The situation was further complicated by severe cold. For a long time, the solar panels couldn't receive energy, so the main systems discharged, and Opportunity could no longer function. They say that it managed to send its last words to Earth. The battery's running out, it's getting darker and darker. At the time, this really touched internet users. Continuing the conversation about Mars, we can see what shade its sky has during sunset. We're used to our earthly sunsets when the clouds turn a gentle pink or red. As we can see from photos taken by different Mars rovers, the sunset there is bluish in color. This shade appears because the blue glow penetrates more strongly due to the huge amount of dust on the planet's surface. You can also notice that the sun appears much smaller than it does from Earth. This is, of course, because of the greater distance between the celestial bodies. Have you ever wondered what would happen if the moon moved closer to the Earth? If this actually happened, the most obvious consequences would be that many coastal areas would be flooded by the ocean. On top of that, there would be regular volcanic eruptions and earthquakes. Our planet would be shaking every second. When the distance between the moon and the Earth decreases even more, the satellite will simply break apart, and fragments of the moon will form a ring system around the Earth. After such tremors, only a small number of people would manage to survive. On the plus side, they would witness a truly amazing view of the sky. On the downside, there would be a meteor shower of lunar dust every night. What do you think happens when two black holes collide with each other? It's similar to throwing a stone into a lake. Ripples form on the surface of the water. Something like that happens with black holes too. When they collide, their fabric of space-time is shaken by waves that travel at the speed of light. And until 2015, we didn't know for sure whether this process actually happened. And it was important to know, because it confirmed the correctness of Einstein's general theory of relativity. And 9 years ago, scientists detected these vibrations using the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory, or Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory for short. In general, black holes are very difficult to detect. The opportunity usually arises when they are consuming matter. That's why scientists had difficulties getting images of such objects. However, they managed to do it. They were able to get images of two black holes, Sagittarius AA, and the objects in the galaxy M87. What's interesting is the way scientists achieved this success. They simply created a telescope the size of the Earth. Yes, we're not joking. Of course, it wasn't literally a single complete telescope. It was a complex system of telescopes located on Earth. By collecting data from all the devices, we were able to get real images of black holes. We don't have images of most of the black holes we know about, but some of them are still terrifying, like Phoenix A, for example. This black hole is so enormous that its size surpasses some galaxies. It would take us 71 days to make a full orbit around it in a spaceship. The scariest part is the black hole keeps growing over time. What will happen to it next, and more importantly, what will happen to the objects that are unlucky enough to be near it? Are you familiar with Betelgeuse? It's the second brightest star in the Orion constellation, and it often behaves quite strangely. Sometimes it gets brighter, and sometimes the opposite. At the same time, powerful flares occur on the star every day, and recent studies have shown that Betelgeuse doesn't have much time left to live. Very soon it will simply explode. But what will happen to Earth, and how will it affect us? We can tell you that the star has either already exploded or will explode very soon. And the good news is, we won't notice it for a very long time. It's just that Betelgeuse is about 500 light years away from Earth, so we still see it as whole and unharmed. But if the distance were, say, 50 light years, then we definitely wouldn't be so lucky. There have also been some truly sad stories. Innocent creatures can suffer from scientific ambition, as happened to the dog Leica. She became the first living creature to be sent into outer space in 1957. At that time, the Soviet Union did everything it could to surpass the United States in the space race and planned to send a human into space as soon as possible. However, first it was necessary to understand how gravity's absence affects the body. It was decided to send a stray dog into space first. Leica was actually picked up on one of the streets of Moscow. She was placed in a small cabin with little space, and Leica's pulse was rapidly increasing. After 6 hours, the dog died in agony. It's terrifying to imagine what she felt in the last minutes of her life. But we can be sure that this sacrifice provided invaluable help to space science and saved the lives of many of the first space explorers. In fact, there is still so much we don't know about space. It never ceases to amaze us and continues to astound our minds even now. And which fact surprised you the most? Well, Earthlings, this isn't the end of the video. We still have some very interesting and truly spectacular episodes ahead. But for me to keep delighting you with all the characters of the cosmic expanses, I need your feedback. You can express it quite simply. All you need to do is give an electronic like under this video, since we simply don't have any other kinds of likes, and I know how to finish that phrase. That way, you'll let me know that we're moving in the right direction. Don't change the channel.